Hello, everyone. Welcome to Driving and Dragons, where we spend our time playing with, talking about, working on, and restoring both tabletop role playing games and old cars for the benefit and enjoyment of you, the subscriber to the channel. It's funny that I've been doing this for a few years now, and I only just came to the realization that I'm basically doing the same thing with both of my major hobbies, attempting to restore them to their former glory for everyone to get more happiness and entertainment out of. Today's video will be on the skill-based gaming typically found in advancement systems like Cyberpunk and Call of Cthulhu. More specifically, how rigidly those skills need to be enforced in game to avoid role-playing making a multitude of the skills simply vestigial. While it more specifically applies to those skill-focused games, it applies almost equally to games like Dungeons and Dragons or any game system where there are systems to adjudicate specific skills in place. Before I get to that, I promised a big announcement on Monday's video, and here it is. The channel will be starting work on the first of hopefully many giveaway car restorations. I've started a Patreon, and the link is in the description below. Patrons will not only get a say in future topics for videos, but will also get direct input on design choices for the restoration project and will get the opportunity to vote on decisions ranging from color to performance upgrades to interior design as the project continues. How quickly the job gets finished and the car gets given away will be entirely determined on how many of you guys join my Patreon and convince your friends to like, share, and subscribe and sign up themselves. Because this is all funded by channel revenue and all revenues directed at the project and those that hopefully follow it. Once the car is near completion, sign up for a drawing will begin, and funds at that point will be diverted to a charitable cause until the deadline for entry arrives. This is possible far sooner than expected because of one extremely generous fan of the channel. The long story short, he reached out and offered to donate his father's old car to the channel. There will later be an unveiling video showing the car once it arrives here in Alabama, hopefully within the next several weeks, where I will go over the history of the car and give a more appropriate thank you in some more detail. For now, though, the car itself is a 1974 Dodge Dart Custom, currently housing a 318 cubic inch V8 engine. The car has some very special previous owners and a uniquely American history that I am planning to incorporate into the design choices for the restoration itself, once I determine just how much this car will need after I lay hands on it. With a little bit of luck and a ton of support from you guys, I will be meeting one of you at a convention to hand over the keys in 2026 or 2027. So head on over to Patreon and follow me because the chance to win a car by watching this tiny little YouTube channel just became a reality. Now on to TTRPGs and how you're doing it wrong when it comes to the balance between good RP and listed skills in your games. This video was inspired by our buddy Lord Mateus over on X. I saw his post and penned it for intelligence as a dump stat, but it honestly has no business there. The parts where he misses the mark are not really misses, and it is a topic where the limited character count on X certainly doesn't allow for the nuance needed to fully explore the topic. I am honestly not sure that a single YouTube video is enough either, but I'm here to at least prime the pump for more discussion. Mateus posted the following in response to a discussion about the Dragon Magazine Issue 1 article from June of 76 titled, How to Use Non-Prime Requisite Character Attributes. Quote, I'm open to using skill systems, but they must be rigidly applied. E.g., if you have a fire starter skill, then only people with that skill should be able to do it. The real problem with these systems is that there tend to be too many skills for every little action that could be role-played. Unquote. He does have a point, but he's venturing into the territory where gamist/mechanical players mishandle skill systems, both in games where there are other leveling ability or class structures, as well as games where the skill system is the sum total of character abilities. That is, determining just how rigidly skill systems should restrict player abilities in the game versus how much a character's ideas on a role-playing level should allow them to influence their environment. To use his example, if there is a skill called fire starting, should a player character have any chance of success without points invested in that skill? Does it make a research skill irrelevant if a PC can simply accomplish the task with a high intelligence score? The answer is sometimes. Not a very satisfying answer, but unfortunately, it's the truth. For skill-based games, the game master has to be able to appropriately adjudicate where the line between skilled and unskilled use needs to be, and there is no one correct answer, even within the game systems themselves. This becomes an almost Sisyphean task when poor game design leads to either skills too vague or too defined, such as an encyclopedia of skills as minute as key turning and stair climbing, or a quote skill-based game that operates entirely on a handful of attributes that could all arguably apply to just about any skill, like is found in so many of the one-page RPGs on the market. Now, I'm going to focus this video not on game design, but on running existing games, and I will generally assume that the game is reasonably well designed for these purposes. However, I will throw in this little design advice tidbit because it applies to the GM on a smaller scale in some game systems. When you have the task of determining how refined or abstract skills in your specific game need to be, you need to strongly consider your setting and genre. In a Dark Ages fantasy game, having more than a dozen individual skills for different kinds of polearms and swords makes a lot of sense. However, in a modern setting, melee weapon heavy and melee weapon light is likely more than enough, as the number of sword fighting specialists in your hard-boiled detective adventure isn't likely to warrant different skills for longsword, rapier, arming sword, saber, and tool. Likewise, there isn't likely a need for any scientific knowledge skills beyond knowledge science in that medieval game, while a sci-fi adventure would need 4 or 5 knowledge-based skills just to cover the basic operation of a medium-sized starship, to say nothing of all the different situations that might arise in a world where there are 4 branches of physics alone taught in high school. Being selective about what skills are used and which are either omitted or combined into more broad, single headings is half the battle when it comes to effectively applying skill systems in your games. When dealing with skills in game, whether I choose them or they are simply the skills that the game says exists, I tend to rank them into 3 broad categories: general skills, specific skills, and specialty skills. General skills are those things that cover stuff that just about anyone should be able to do or figure out without any kind of training, but for which training can clearly improve the results. For general skills, an attempt should virtually always be allowed, with the skill largely determining the degree of success, not so much the success or failure. In many cases, general skills could be included as segments of more advanced skills, or simply left as raw ability checks in their most basic applications. These are skills like jump, search, spot, listen, run, swim, gather information, carouse, computer use in a modern setting, things that are so commonplace and so simple that they are either instinctive actions or they can be easily figured out even by someone with lower than average intelligence. Just for a reference point, these skills often have a base success chance of 15 to 20% in Call of Cthulhu. No training, no advantages. There's just a 15% chance that you can successfully intimidate someone. General skills, like these that fall into they fall into the easy part of the GM's job. And they are the proof positive that Lord Mateus was mistaken with his comment: if you have a fire starter skill, Only characters who have that skill should be able to use it. Just because I never took even the first elementary school PE class about long jump doesn't eliminate my ability to run and jump as far as I can. In this case, skill points would simply represent significant study. For example, fire starting, as suggested by Lord Mateus, would not mean that an untrained PC can't start a fire. It simply means that a PC with the fire starter skill knows how to make a proper bow drill and understands the concept of building a fire from tinder to kindling to small fuel, and therefore has a far higher chance of success, often not even needing a roll for the more basic applications. Skipping ahead, we find the other place where the GM gets it pretty easy. Specialty skills. A specialty skill is not just a skill that is honed in a very specific and detailed way. It is the evolution of a more basic skill that absolutely requires training. Computer use as a general skill can easily be attempted untrained to try and stop a program from running or find a file folder or a few levels down from the desktop. But to write even a basic program requires actual computer use training and likely a more specific skill. Programming, perhaps. Basically, everything that falls under the umbrella of both programming and computer use is going to be the kind of advanced level task that requires special, specific training or education to even make a meaningful attempt. The GM gets an easy job here because the tasks that require a specialty skill are often the kinds of things that explicitly require specialized education to even have the faintest idea where to begin the process. Where things get a little murkier with specialty skills is drawing the line where computer use is no longer enough to warrant an attempt, but this is still easier than dealing with the next category. Where the rubber meets the road for game masters, and where doing it wrong becomes a real possibility, is in the skills that I call specific skills. These skills aren't just the middle ground between specialty and general skills. They represent those skills where the gap between everyday Joe and absolute master is vast. These are also skills where typical use should be something that requires some level of training and knowledge, but that certain simple functions of the skill should not be off the table untrained. A couple of examples that come to mind, given the nature of this channel, are drive auto and automotive repair. To drive a car is a skill, without a doubt, particularly if we're talking about a car made prior to the Great Depression, or when discussing performance driving or handling difficult conditions like snow or heavy rain. Even something as simple as driving quickly across town through traffic or driving on snowy roads would likely require a drive check and should probably require points in the skill to not result in an automatic failure for the player character. But what about moving a car that's blocking your path? Simply cranking it up and throwing it in gear enough to move it 5 feet. Or stealing the bad guy's Jeep and flooring it to ram through a gate that's 50 feet away across flat level ground. At the bare minimum, most of us agree that that should allow for an attempt. Same goes for automotive repair. Sure, untrained, you aren't tuning your carburetor or making a performance upgrade or repairing bodywork, but maybe you want to change the oil and you got the Haynes repair manual for the car right there. Written step-by-step instructions with pictures should more than likely be enough to at least warrant a roll. Because honestly, 99% of the time, most game masters wouldn't even ask for a roll to succeed at that task if the PC was trained in the skill at all. Maybe I don't want to repair the damaged bodywork. I simply want to grab the crumpled fender and bend it into a position where it's not rubbing the wheel anymore after my failed drive check. If I'm calling for a roll there, it would most likely be strength, not automotive repair. Because while it is technically working on the car, there is no skill involved in pulling a piece of sheet metal until it bends. Firearms use is definitely a skill that requires training to be truly proficient. But pretty much everyone can pick up a gun and figure out point hole at bad guy, squeeze trigger. They'll probably miss, but The player phrase, I grab the revolver off the table, point it at Johnny Hot Hand, and say, looks like your streak went cold, before blasting him out of the saloon on his back, should never be met with, oh, damn, that sounds cool, but dude, you don't have any points in firearms. You can't shoot the gun at all. Throughout this little diatribe of mine, you can see all the subtle nuances involved in this discussion. Situations like the role play decision to yank the computer cord out of the wall to stop a program running, not needing a computer use check, or allowing an untrained firearms check to solve a problem 2 feet away with the original point and click interface. And meanwhile, understanding that all the luck in the world isn't going to save you from the role play decision to steal daddy's T-Bird and gun it across town at 120 miles an hour. The only role in that situation would be the GM rolling to determine how far out of the driveway you make it and whether you hit the ditch, the mailbox, the neighbor's car, or the neighbor's house in the process because you don't have any points in Drive Auto. I prefer skill-based games. In large part, it is because of the level of realism that comes from these kind of game master decisions at the table. The kind of decisions that don't happen when do you have the power attack feat is an on-off switch for an ability. That's what I've got for right now. Remember to hit the like button, head on over to Patreon where my Restore Auto Check could end up being your own critical success on a luck check in the future. Until then, drop a comment below. Tell me where you see people doing it wrong, or inform me of how I'm a dirty story gamer who doesn't play real games because I don't let the dice and the printed rules interpreted the most literal way possible determine everything at my table. And I'll see you guys on Monday, where good old J. Scott Garibay has already shown us intelligence as a dump stat this week.